preparation and warm-up. You're about to hear a story of something that I did in order to save money. Now you can do something similar to what I did in order to save money. Essentially what I did is I lived with two different friends, and instead of paying rent, I offered them something of value. Now it might seem weird to you to do this, but this enabled me to save money, and with that money I was able to start investing in properties. So this story is from the ebook Make Big Profits Flipping Florida Land. This is excerpts of the story from pages 27 to 32. Now when you're listening to this, you might think this is a little bit radical, but maybe it will motivate, challenge, and inspire you and give you some ideas of something that you could do that might suit you, that you can use to save money and start getting your first investment property. I wanted freedom. At the time, I was living in a Quonset hut with a bunch of artists in downtown West Palm Beach, Florida, and I wanted to continue living like this, but I wanted to get my own place. I also didn't want to pay rent. I wanted to save up money so that I could get my own place. So I talked to my friend Scott, an engineer and a real estate investor who at the time lived in North Palm Beach, Florida. Years earlier, we had met at church and had been friends ever since. I told him that I wanted to live with him in order to save money and to produce and record music tracks, songs for a Christian music ministry project that I started called Out of the Wilderness, which I did. So Scott agreed to let me sleep on the couch. I even set up my keyboard and portable digital mixer for recording the music against one wall in his kitchen. And here's how it worked. Scott said that as long as I made him smoothies every morning and helped him do repairs with his properties, I could live there. So essentially, I was living at Scott's rent-free. So at the end of 6 months, I had recorded most of the songs for Out of the Wilderness, and you can find them at outofthewilderness.bandcamp.com. That's outofthewilderness.bandcamp.com. And hopefully at some point at outofthewilderness.net. So at the end of 6 months, I had recorded most of the songs for Out of the Wilderness. I had saved money, and I had learned firsthand what it's like to live with someone who has rental properties. You see, Scott had rental properties. I learned that I did not want to be a landlord. Scott rented out duplexes to tenants, and I saw that it was a full-time job. His life at that point consisted of arriving home from work at the engineering firm where he worked, changing into ripped shorts and dirty shirts, then visiting his properties to do maintenance on them. Often I would help. Usually we didn't return until after midnight. The work was physical. We lived in one of Scott's duplexes and often did repairs in the others. I remember using a sledgehammer to help smash out bathroom tiles, then heaving a toilet into the bathroom while we both fastened it to the floor. Sure, he might have made solid income flow from his properties, but was the trade-off worth it? Every night running from property to property fixing things? Soon after recording most of the music for Out of the Wilderness and feeling the need for a change, I moved out of Scott's place. What I learned from living with Scott is this: being a landlord can be, and with him, it was a full-time job. There's got to be a better way to make long-term profits. Later, I found out there is a better way. Coconuts as currency. Sometime later, after moving out of Scott's, I received a call from David, a Bahamian-born entrepreneur and musician. He was an interesting, somewhat enigmatic fellow who I had met years earlier in downtown West Palm Beach, Florida, and had done work for, assisting him with maintenance, usually painting or carpentry, on his investment property on Dixie Boulevard in downtown West Palm Beach. David was calling from New York. It was nighttime, and he had an urgency in his voice as he told me that someone had broken into his building on Dixie. He told me that if I could drive by and cover the broken window with a board, he would let me stay in the kitchen of his place for free, and that, when he returned from New York, we would discuss my staying there for a further period. David owned 3 buildings on Dixie. The big 2-story building he had sold. Beside it sat 2 smaller 1-story buildings. The 2 smaller buildings were fenced. One of the smaller buildings in the back housed a kitchen and bathroom with a shower. The smaller building in front consisted of David's living space, several rooms, a music studio, a bathroom, a living room. Anyway, David calls me from New York City, an urgency in his voice, and says that his building got broken into. He wants me to go there and check it out. So, somewhat cautiously, I drove to his building, parked, and wandered to the front door of the smaller building in the back that housed the kitchen. Noticing the broken window on the door and bits of glass all over the ground, I walked the premises carefully to see if any other buildings had gotten vandalized. Even though the windows had been broken, bars were framed in front, preventing anyone from entering. My guess is that someone had broken the window, then tried to put their arms through and unlock the door from the inside. Long story short, a cop arrives and I'm on the phone with David. So he talks to the cop, explaining that I'm a friend. He called to check things out. The cop leaves. I return with a board, cut it to fit over the window, then screw it into the aluminum door. When David returned, I moved into that building, the kitchen. I set up a foam pad for sleeping bags beneath the kitchen table, a thin sleeping bag to go over it, my computer on the table, and moved into the kitchen. The rent agreement was this. David said that my rent was 2 coconuts a day. At the time, in West Palm Beach, Florida, recently a storm had come through, a hurricane, and I was delivering pizzas, usually in the afternoons and evenings, and there was coconuts, a lot of them, all over the ground. So when I saw them, I would toss them into the back of my Honda Civic. So I agreed that 2 coconuts a day for rent was fair. I purchased a machete from Brazil from Hall's Hardware in West Palm Beach and placed it in the back of the Honda. While delivering pizzas, I would find coconuts on the street from the hurricane, a lot of them. I would pull over and put them in the back of the car. Arriving to the kitchen after work, I would chop off the top of one of the coconuts, put a straw in it, and place it in the fridge. Almost every morning, David would walk in, open the fridge, and drink the coconut milk for breakfast. I placed the second coconut unopened in the fridge so it would be cold for the next day. Once the juice was consumed, I would chop it open for the meat and place that in a container. Living there proved to be a real blessing in that I saved money with the intention to purchase my own fixer-upper. So that's a brief excerpt lifted from some of the pages 27 through 32 of Make Big Profits Flipping Florida Land ebook that shows you how I lived differently in order to save money to get my first investment property. The reason why I'm sharing this with you in the video training module is to let you know that you can probably find some place to live for free. Now, will there be a work exchange in exchange for the rent? Probably. But think about it. Think about where you live. Think of how you can maybe live with a family member or a friend or an acquaintance who needs help of some sort. Maybe they need help driving. Maybe they need help for 1 or 2 hours a day. But if they let you live there rent-free and you're able to hold a part-time job or even work from their place, imagine the amount of money you can save. And you can use that money to get started finding, buying, and flipping properties in Florida or anywhere else and resell those properties for a profit. And you can also use that money to get started learning how to make money online so that you can work from anywhere in the world. So I hope this inspires you in some way.